Patrick earned a dual MSW and MPH degree in 2000 and is currently the president of Global Partners for Fathers and Families and project manager for the National Responsible Fatherhood Clearinghouse. He's also an award-winning speaker, which you'll see today, an author.
No pressure.
No pressure.
We'll be voting.
Okay.
He's also an author. His two daughters have written 2 books with him.
We've written 2 books together.
The first one is called I Love It When My Daddy Reads to Me. And the first time I met Patrick, he gave it to me, and my kids love it. It's so awesome. And he's also a nationally recognized advocate for fathers and their families. So please join me in welcoming Patrick today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
That was a test. Good afternoon. How you guys doing? All right. I plan to be brief, no matter how long it takes. I like to start with a couple things. What's your name, young lady? I'm sorry.
Josie.
Josie. Give Josie a hand. She is passing around a couple of raffle tickets because I believe in door prizes. Y'all like door prizes? I mean, I like receiving gifts, but I also like bearing gifts. This is special for me for a couple of reasons. One is I am a proud graduate of the program. My life, you can clap for that. My life has been pretty amazing, and I give a lot of credit to not only the college, but also the people that I've met while here. And so for the few minutes that I have, I'm going to be as transparent as possible in hopes that as you guys think about where you go next in your lives, that it's helpful to you. Does that make sense? Yep. But I'd like to start with an activity. You thought you were not in class today, didn't you? Okay. In groups of 5, I need one more volunteer. Who can help me? Thanks, Sarah.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yes. Oh, did you raise your hand? I need 2 volunteers then. Come on. Yes.
Okay, come up.
Yes, please.
Do we still get to keep this?
Yes. This does not disqualify you. All about the gifts, huh, Sarah?
No, I just don't want to follow. I want to break the rules.
I want you guys to organize into groups of 3. You can look at your neighbor, or you can find your best friend in here. And you guys organize in groups of 3. There should be 5 groups. And if my math is not right, you can cheat. Yes, 1 stack.
You can participate too.
Oh, I am.
Good.
Just not in the
There's only
way.
5 sets of activity cards. So if you are not in a group that has cards, join a group. I confess I chose social work because I didn't like math, so I'm sorry. And every group should get a free card. Sarah, every group should get a free card. Clean card. Okay.
You got another group? You got another one?
No, there's one more free card.
This is a
Just
free
do 5
card.
groups.
We got Mrs. C.
Free card.
Does every group have cards? Okay. Free card. Y'all good? Okay, here's the activity. For the next 3 minutes, I want you to rank order what is important for you. Rank order. We're going to hear from each group. Rank order 1 to 5. And then you have a free card because you guys get to write in what I didn't include. Does that make sense? 3 minutes? Who's got a phone? Who's my favorite timer? You got me?
Gotcha.
We have to
Okay.
come to a consensus as a group?
Say it again?
We have to come to a consensus on what the 3 things are?
Yes, so this is great. I know in most places when people are eating dinner, you don't talk because you're on your phone. In this room, you're to talk to each other. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So discuss. The time is yours. Team activity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you get a blank card.
Other than your family.
I feel like they kind of
Sorry if I get in your shot.
I think if they have the relationships, then we can get, and maybe even service committees too.
I mean, if you're thinking like survival life, like money goes up, and if I'm thinking about like what am I writing,
What's our expectation? So what's the, we don't have specific.
I don't get money, but I also feel like
She wasn't here.
Where does that?
And he's a brother, I always say. I'm sorry, I always tell you. He's a brother.
I like relationships.
But when I met him the first time,
I don't know. Yeah, because at the end of the year, they back you up. That's very
he's what, 6'3", 6'4"?
You can't have it.
I saw him, but I'm like, oh, really?
So this sort of, I feel like this is the overarching theme of our entire.
It's just a regular conversation. It's not a session.
Good, but I think also I feel like if you have
Like your watch, talk sex,
Yeah.
What do you want?
I like the most ingredients possible.
Okay, that works.
Sure, I'll take whatever I can take one of the big ones.
Okay, cool.
About the service, I think it's like earn money, so
But have been like,
sometimes I just do that so I can like earn it, but on like value service, but it's not necessarily.
and they show up. We're coming tomorrow. I'm like,
That's just from like a survival standpoint.
about 1 minute. About 1 minute. 5 seconds.
I'm excited about tomorrow. Here we go.
We're trying to decide where to I don't know. I realize that it's really hard. It makes a difference in like where I would bring things to. Oh, I do. I like that one a lot. No, I like that.
Time's up.
I waved at you when you walked
Hands up, hands down. Oh, there's food here. Can y'all smell it? Why don't we do this? Grab a quick bite. While you're grabbing a quick bite, elect who will represent your group when you share your priorities. Okay? 1 minute to grab a quick bite if you want.
I think it's there's something on the bottom of it too that keeps catching on this carpet, so if I go.
Velcro?
No, it's like it's a nail that's holding something. Oh, sorry.
Well, be careful.
Continue to make it all through the day.
It was perfect. Right. Yeah.
Can I get a money?
Survive even on a basic level. I probably am thinking about it differently because I'm also like grad student. It's like, oh well, if I like to
Are we like joining?
bread for 2 days, I'll be fine. So like I'm not necessarily there yet. I'm like because I'm like I'm not worried about my student loans yet. I'm like very what's coming next.
Right.
But I know it's like valuable. But I also know I'm like not going into a very a lot of money. So
Yeah, I was going to join. I haven't seen some lineup for that.
oh I don't. It's like you need it. Like, yeah, right.
I'm the director of
They all stick out the bottom of my shoe. They keep.
All right, who wants to go first?
Yeah.
Who wants to go first? Beautiful. Thanks for raising your hand, guys. Talk to us.
After.
So we ranked relationships and family first. We had a hard time distinguishing, kind of putting one above the other because they're both like equally important to us.
Okay.
If you have like your relationships you value in your family, and sometimes your relationships become family and vice versa. So we kind of had those tied. We wrote in a card, and the card we wrote in is growth, and we put that next. If you're growing, you're kind of always getting to a new level in your career and life, so we put that next highest. We put money third because on a basic level you need it for survival, even if it's not one of the most important things to you, you just kind of need it to function. So we put that a little bit higher. We put service next. If you are worried about money, you can't necessarily be worried about like serving others. So if you're stable there, then you can like serve other people, and we also value it. And then we put fulfillment last. We also kind of thought fulfillment goes with growth, so if you have all of these, then you're kind of like fulfilled, so you can't really put it first if you aren't worried about anything else.
I love it. Give him a hand, y'all.
Cool.
Who's next? Beautiful. Go for it.
So we kind of had a similar debate, kind of like what's the most important, because it's like kind of all of them are really important.
Yeah.
So our number one was family, followed by relationships. And the blank card we used to write in spirituality, because that's something we all kind of valued. And like family and relationships and spirituality, we kind of felt like they all went hand in hand. So spirituality is kind of like off to the side, connecting family and relationships. Below that is fulfillment, which is also kind of coupled with money and service. So fulfillment, service can like be fulfilling. Money allows us, like, you know, like they were saying, like your basic needs, so you are able to do things that are fulfilling to you and also be of service to others.
Beautiful. Good. Give him a hand. Who's in your group? Oh, beautiful. Good job. Who's next?
Sure.
This is getting easier.
So we had a similar kind of conundrum here, and we decided to be difficult and create a nonlinear model. And so
Social workers rock, right?
we said that kind of central, we ranked family and
Did
relationships.
you get rid of the cards? I mean, I see two
They're
cards.
like this, right? So yeah, so
need a blank
down the middle we
I'm going to hire you right now.
Sarah already hired me.
Sarah?
With her.
Okay, all right. We're going to fight over you after this.
Deal.
Keep going.
So family relationships and service are in the middle, but in order to have time with family or the ability to really develop relationships, you need money, right? And so money kind of informs your ability to access family relationships and service, and those things essentially create fulfillment.
Did you have a free card space, or did I hear the free
No,
card?
we used the free card to develop our model.
Is there another one that you'd add that was not one of the ones I gave you?
Oh, community, yes. So community was also part of that that middle four.
Give them a hand, y'all. All right. Yes.
So we ranked these, as I'm about to tell you, but the number one that we put in was one that we wrote in, which we thought integrity. Because we felt like if you have integrity, all the rest fall in place.
Yeah.
And without integrity, you can miss out on some of these other items. Number two was family. And number three was relationships. The fourth one was service, and then fulfillment, and then money. And we sort of felt like they all built upon each other. So if you have integrity, then you can have all the rest. If you have family, then you can work down and have all those. And we felt money, even though it is important for life, we felt like if you do all of these things, and then the money will come.
Hand for that, yeah. Solid.
We put family at the top because we think that that's like your immediate family that you live with. So for me, that would be my dog, my cat. And relationships would be like more of the outer level of relationships within your life. And then we wrote in spirituality. And then we kind of had a debate about service and fulfillment. We talked about how service do you do service for fulfillment? Or does service always equal fulfillment? But we decided that service doesn't always have to equal fulfillment, but you're still there and showing up.
Yeah.
So we put service below spirituality, and then fulfillment, and then money, because we're social workers. We expect to not make a lot of money.
Aww! Isn't that sweet? Give them a round of applause, bro. So here's the deal. This is not easy. And the reason why it's not easy is because we all have our own value system. Some of us grew up affluent. And it becomes difficult to understand folks who are not affluent. Some of us grew up like me. I enjoyed free pizza. When free pizza came, if it was cold or hot, I ate free pizza. And so my value system is based on who I am and where I came from. Does that make sense?
Is part of it your age too? Because I was thinking I would have answered differently when I was that age. It's easier for me to put money lower or service lower, or service higher.
I think I'm 45, so I don't want to make any
We're not talking.
guesses. Yeah. We're not going to do this interview right now. But I would say it shifts over time.
Yeah.
When I was a student here at USC, I would have said, I would have made one blank card repeatedly. It would have said money, money, money. I remember I could gauge how far I can go when my gas light was on. You know, I'm like, people get in the car like, hey bro, we can't go to the game. I'm like, no, trust me, I can get to the game. I can get to the game, and we're fine. We cannot cross the railroad track though. We got to go around the track. And if you had a driveway that went down, I couldn't park in that because it read it as less full. So if you had this is science by the way, but if your driveway was like this, I could park my car. So money was important to me. At 45, and been doing this work now for almost 22 years, service is at the top of my list. My passion drives me, and it aligns with everything else that I need. My family is surrounded by the way, my Uncle Calvin and my Aunt Evelyn, give them a hand, y'all. And I'm gonna get into my story in a second, but for me, my family supports all of that. And then you get into the other technical things, you know, fulfillment, relationships. They kind of all, so I like what you did. It's kind of a circle versus, does that make any sense? And in this field, because I heard integrity, in this field, you'll be offered opportunities that may challenge all of that. But at the end of the day, this is what I say to myself after years of doing this work, I've got to be able to go to sleep at night. You know, in the medical field, they teach them very early on, do no what? Harm. We don't have the same mantra, but we should. If I'm conflicted because I have taken a child from a home, that if I had just listened to the auntie who didn't speak, I could have kept that kid in the house. I worked in a child welfare system at a group home. The kids that I saw most often were the kids that were routinely taken advantage of by people who had a loving aunt or uncle. But because my job said you can only be in it for no longer than 25 minutes, you got to ask just these questions. You actually did what the job wanted, but did you do harm by removing that kid and putting them into the system? Am I making any sense?
Yep.
So we have to work with the systems that we work within, but we have to have our own internal system. Does that make any sense? Your circle matters. Most of my friends, even while I was an undergraduate, are people today that have a similar system than I have. They're not satisfied. I'm not satisfied. I have lived 45 years of this, and this has kind of led me through sports. I always felt like I was being chased. And I just never wanted to be caught by failure. This might not make any sense to anybody. But it has driven me to continue to drive. Does that make any sense? No one on the outside, my family included, can make you drive faster. Where does it come from? The inside. And so let me tell you why I started with this exercise. We have to have our own value system. Mine is a little bit different. Right now it is God, my family, service, and community. Those four things is kind of how I check boxes when people call me and say, would you, can you, would you like to? That internal system is what drives me every day. And I've had some amazing opportunities, but I have to have my own internal system. Otherwise, who's been on the bus going in the wrong direction before? It's very easy. It says going downtown. You get on it, but you really need to be going where? Uptown. You got to have your own compass. So let me start with how I got to the College of Social Work. I'm going to start with the beginning. I grew up in Columbia, born and raised. I'm one of four. I'm the third. Any middle children in here? Yes. Yes. We get your attention one way or the other. Is that right? I have an older sister, 6 years older, a brother 4 years older, and a brother 4 years younger. And I grew up right down from here, about a mile from here, maybe 2 miles from here, in a place called Saxon Homes. It used to be the projects. Y'all know projects? Do we need to explain projects?
You shouldn't have.
Somebody explain projects. I don't want to give my definition of it.
How about a student?
It's an unrepresented community.
Yeah. Okay. So go for it.
So, housing projects by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development designed for people with limited low incomes, especially people with children, older adults. And I'm reading this book right now, I forget the author, but Cabrini Green and the
Chicago.
in the fall of public housing. And so public housing was supposed to be innovative, but they didn't put the resources in. So it has bad connotation.
Yes.
And disinvestment.
No, give her a hand. Woo. Good citations. Uncle Calvin, describe the projects.
A project is a community, first of all. It's a community. It's a community that's interwoven together. Everything in the project is not as bad or good as it seems or it may be reported. I'm a product of the project that he's talking about. I grew up, same place he grew up, but different time. And one thing about the project was that
Oh boy, here it comes. It's a slow rise.
one thing about the project was that when we lived there, it was also, and I'm listening to what everybody is saying here, and I agree with you. You guys put family first. You put family first. And in the projects, I don't care if you was Mrs. Bowen, Mrs. Jones, whomever, if your child or daughter or whomever got out of line, that parent over in, say, across the street, across the other apartments, had permission to put you back in line. So in this project, there was one thing that was stressed, and that was love. And I'll leave it like that.
Yeah. I gotta say, I had a flashback just now. When my mother would call my uncle, he'd start off mild like that, and then y'all saw the rise? I had to like step back, like, what are we doing here? But the projects typically are government sponsored. They typically are, and this is where I always equate it. It's the size of a quarter is how you describe the number of people. But the projects is probably the size of a dime. Does that make any sense? Overcrowded. The place that I grew up, there were 60 buildings, and there were 10 units in each building. Does that make sense? So everything was on top of everything. But to Uncle Calvin's point, from the outside, people saw it as something that was detrimental. For me, it was a place of hope. It was a place of love. The way it worked is if Sarah could braid hair, and Uncle Calvin worked the second shift, his kids needed the hair braided, she'd braid the hair, and if she had to go to work, he'd watch her kids while she was at work. Does that make any sense?
Yep.
Now, those are the positives. The downside is, in a place where people are fighting for the same thing, there is violence, there is crime. There are people who come into the neighborhood to literally embed things, particularly drugs, that are not a fair game. So it's not always rosy. I mean, we give you the best of the best, but that's where I grew up. It was nothing to say gangs were present then, but there were groups that were not safe at the time. So imagine this. All of my childhood through age 15, I walked to school, and on a given day, there's a guy who may be drunk. There's a guy who just beat a woman, and I'm not condoning it, but just beat a woman, and you saw her visibly discolored because she was beaten by her boyfriend or somebody else. Imagine going to school and the teacher says to you, Patrick, open your book, and you just heard your next door neighbor. They're not disjointed, they're attached apartments. Imagine all night hearing your next door neighbors fight, and you know you heard violence in the apartment next door. Does that make any sense? And the teacher says, Patrick, what'd you read last night? I didn't have a normal night, so maybe I didn't read. Imagine this, some of those kids who lived in the projects, they didn't live with parents who went and completed high school. So you send home homework, and you're saying you're doing basic algebra, and at the end of the day, you say, have your parents help you. But your grandmother is who you live with. And so she doesn't quite understand algebra. Does that make sense? Lots of things were present where I grew up. All of my youth, particularly through the age of 15, in my house when I was born, my parents were married. My dad, and I just saw this on Uncle Calvin. There's a picture of my dad in the hallway here. My father was a man who spent time in prison. He was not ashamed of that. In and out, in and out. But from the time that I was born in 1974, throughout my childhood, my father was the guy that made me feel safe. He was the guy that made me feel like I could do anything. I used to get in arguments with kids in my neighborhood. I would say, we live right over here by the airport. The Saxon homes used to be down here. We'd have airplanes fly over. I used to tell my friends that my dad could take a rock and hit an airplane. That's what I thought of my dad. My dad was the kind of guy that finished 8th grade, didn't go to high school, but was the most wise person I ever knew. He could teach you in parables about life. So for me, he was my hero. Changed my life. 7th grade year, I'm playing football, and I don't know anybody who plays sports, but when you start out, some days you're not the best. You're clumsy, you're not fast, you're out of shape. I remember saying to my dad, this is for birds. And my dad said, whatever you start, you finish. 7th grade. And I'm thinking, like, this dude has no idea that the guy who I'm having to block in practice is 3 times my size. But his point was, whatever you start in life, you have to finish. So, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. My father worked in Columbia on North Main. There is a couple eateries down here now, but this district was not what it is now. My father worked at a Coca-Cola factory. Used to be on North Main. Had a great job there, and literally in the middle of all of his transition, my father moved us from the projects to a single family home. Anybody know single family home? Front yard, backyard, wash and dry, you're in the house, not the laundromat, If you playing football in the projects, you typically run into somebody's yard. And you get some old person, God bless them, that will say to you what? Get out of my yard. And so you can't even play a full game because it's like a 5-yard field, right? When you get your own house, you have the opportunity to play a full game. My siblings and I enjoyed the pleasure of not hearing our neighbors going through what they went through. We enjoyed the pleasure, and you might have a very decent apartment in the projects, but if your neighbors were infested with, I'm just gonna say bugs. Let's just say bugs. Let's just say bugs, okay? Somehow, some way, because you're attached, they got into your apartment. So imagine picking up a box of Fruit Loops, and you can't wait to get home from school, and you get home from school, and that box of Fruit Loops now has a hole in it, because one of those things climbed in while you were at school. Does this make any sense? Daily living. In a single family home, when I put the Fruit Loops on top, I come back from school, I get my Fruit Loops. Different lifestyle. 10th grade year, I'm 15. My dad, after all of these years of working all these jobs, gets promoted. He gets the amazing opportunity at his job. And in the middle of all of this, he decides, after years of not drinking, to take a drink. 15 years old. The guy that can hit the plane with the rock. Never seen him drunk in my life. On this given day, decides to go backwards. Changed my whole world. My junior year of high school, played sports. It was nothing for me to have my parents arguing while my dad was intoxicated. My senior year of high school, my dad, literally, as I'm walking to school, I grew up in the same neighborhood I went to school. It was nothing for me to see my father inebriated or drunk or high. So it created this place in my spirit that turned into a hole. Does that make any sense? The man who I never saw sick, and I have allergies. I never had allergies. I love pollen. I used to draw in pollen. But now I have allergies. My father never was sick. And now I see a man who is now sick. As a high schooler, when you're with your friends, you laugh at things that aren't funny sometimes. And so they'd see my dad and they'd say, "That's your dad." And I would laugh on the outside. But what was happening on the inside? Terribly hurt. So here's the deal. I finished high school with a 1.3 GPA. I don't blame my dad entirely because I never, I'm sorry, all caps, never carried books home. Never. My Uncle Calvin can tell you. He's put a lot of work into me. I want to explain what that is, but he's helped me in immeasurable ways. I never carried books. I never, ever studied. It just wasn't something in my neighborhood that was celebrated. It was something that was looked down upon. Who do you think you are making A's? You know we're products of our environment. Who do you think you are talking about going to college? And so my senior year of high school, in the middle of all of this, my father said to me, "Don't be like me." As a boy, I didn't need Michael Jordan. I didn't need Colin Powell. I wanted to be, are you following this? Like who? My father. He said to me, "Don't be like me." Here's the grace where my life shifts. My senior year of high school, my best friend, running back, we played football together. We spent most weekends together. In the middle of, and this is how God works, in the middle of turmoil, he brings people into your life. My best buddy, We played football together. After games, his mom was nice enough to let me go spend the night. And I just had the best time with him. And he was 1 year older than me. But he said to me, there's a girl who likes you. Who went to the prom in high school? You know, prom is big in South Carolina. I don't know if it's still big today. It's still big today?
Still big.
Okay.
Bigger.
Bigger.
Yes, sir.
He says to me, this girl likes you. And I had seen this girl since middle school. But she was a woman in middle school. Like, she carried a briefcase. No, I'm serious. You know the briefcase where you do the thumbs and it pops up? She wore business attire. She was a part of a group called FBLA. Y'all know FBLA? She took tests and wrote in pen. When most of us, y'all not hearing me. Out of my league. So he said, she likes you. And I said to Ramon, I said, you're lying. He said, no. She told me she likes you. So here's the guy that I was in school. I said to him, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to use the word talk to her. But the words I used were holler at her. Okay? Y'all know holler at her? Okay. I'm just checking the pulse. So I walk over in the cafeteria and I'm going to use Sarah, for example.
I don't have a briefcase.
You don't have a briefcase. And for the guys in the room, I used what I would consider the smoothest line that you can use when you're approaching a woman that you're interested in. You guys can take notes. Just take mental notes. Don't write this down. Do not write this down, guys. Okay? So I walk over to her. I had on a pair of Bugle Boy jeans. Some of you don't know. Google Bugle Boy. Dr. Pittner, you know Bugle Boy. Okay? K-Swiss all-white sneakers. Are y'all following me? White V-neck. I play football, so I had a little bit of gun show. So I had the sleeve rolled up. And my brother was in the military, so he'd come home and every time he'd have this cologne called Cool Water cologne. Google all this stuff. This is all facts, as my kids say. So I walk over to her. I'm doused, too, by the way. I mean, you know, there's the Snoopy cloud following her. So I walk over to her, and I never really spoken to her in high school. Never really talked to her because going to college, going to practice, different things. So I say, Shirani. And she looks at me kind of like, why are you talking to me? I said, here's the line that you guys can use later in life. I said, I heard you like me. Ladies? Ladies? No? There's got to be more. You're not impressed. You're not impressed.
I'm waiting for the next part of the story.
That's the end of it. That's all I did. That's all I did.
You walked away then?
No, I didn't walk away. I stared. You gotta wait for the effect, right? You gotta drop.
The cologne effect.
The cologne. So I say to her, I heard you like me. And you gotta wait on the response. And her response, she used 2 words. She said, no, sir. So at 16, you know, the ego is fragile. You know, did y'all watch Christmas Story? Fragile? Fragile?
Italian.
Fragile. There was so much laughter from my boys because my boy Ramon was actually telling me a lie. But here's the deal. I'm the kind of guy that once I hear no, particularly in this situation, you're now in sight. I never saw you really, but now you're in sight. So I went back tail tucked to my boys. We laughed, but for one moment, this young lady caught my eye. And in my neighborhood, in the projects, I'm being very honest with you guys, you didn't have that. If you played sports or you sold drugs, that wasn't the conversation. It went my way most times. I never had anybody say that to me. So the next couple days, I moved from sitting with my teammates a little closer to sitting by her. Every day I'd say, hi, you know. I never said hi like that. But end of the story is this. Prom is coming. I asked her to the prom, and she agreed to go to the prom with me. Here's her only condition. You're gonna have to go to college. In the middle of my life's transition with my father, my parents separated, God placed this young lady in my path who had an amazing father. 6'2", 270. Look at me, think about him. It's not even a competition. Her brothers were my teammates, and so I went over to their house to watch football with her brothers. Most weekends. She said to me, you gotta go to college. 1.3 GPA, she said to me, I think you can do more than play ball. I never heard that from somebody my age. She said, I will help you get into college, but you're gonna have to do the other part. There was no dating. We went to the prom. I will tell you the prom story, but it's just too bad. It's so sad. Go ahead, I'll tell you the piece. In my neighborhood, if you go to the prom, it's assumed that when you leave the prom, you go to a hotel. I won't even finish that part of the story. Did y'all catch that? Okay. I went to Revco. Anybody heard of Revco before? Revco is like CVS. I went to the Revco in 5 Points. Y'all know 5 Points?
What part of it?
Right where the stores have changed. What's near where Revco used to be at? Okay. Food Lion?
The Starbucks?
Sears.
Sears? Staples?
Yeah.
Google it. I went to Revco. I didn't have a license. My boy took me there. And I bought like all the condoms that they had. I just assumed the night ends my way. We get in the car, we go to the prom, we leave the prom early, because I'm like, let's leave. Let's go. Like, she's like, we just got here. I'm like, let's go. I remember I'm 16, 17. We leave, my boy Roland drives us, and she's like, where are we going? So we're going to the hotel. And I pull out this like, it's like a photo album of condoms. And she says to me, the same 2 words. Y'all remember the 2 words she said?
No, sir.
No, sir. She's consistent. You hear me? Here's how my high school years ended. She helped me get into college. I went to junior college for my first year of college. My first year of college was really grade 13 because I cut up for 12 years. People passed me. Think about the clients you're serving. People passed me just to get me out of the school. First year of college was grade 13. Basic algebra, sentence structure, indentions, periods, commas, semicolons, the basic rules of being grammatically correct. I finished that with a 4.0 GPA. You can clap for that. It's okay. At the same time, this young lady decides she's got a project. This is what I think, she has a project. And she, after months of me asking her to be my girlfriend, she says, I would date you, but you have to not just go to college. What does she say?
Graduate.
You gotta graduate. So I can't like take a semester off and play around. Oh my gosh. End of the story is this. We've been married for 22 years now. You can clap for that, it's okay. 2 beautiful daughters, 13 and 11, that are my everything. But you gotta remember the beginning before I tell you my end. So when I got to North Greenville College in Tigerville, South Carolina, I was a jock. I was in a place full of jocks. I was decent in high school. I had offers, but I didn't have the grades. I didn't know you had to have good grades if you had talent. But you gotta have both. So I get to North Greenville and I realized that I actually enjoyed studying. I actually enjoyed getting an A. I didn't know how good it, y'all know, you're here, you know how it feels. You don't know how it feels?
That's bad.
We'll talk later, guys. So I finished my first year. I leave North Greenville. A buddy of mine, I went to high school, was going to Benedict College. He's at Benedict, he's a freshman. He's up there for something. We're just connecting over the summer. You got high school friends who summer breaks you get together with. We connect. He's in the admissions office at Benedict. And I'm thinking about transferring, but I'm not really sure. I don't have a direction. So in the admissions office, and the admissions person, her name is Phyllis Thompson. She went to my church. She said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm with Warren, but I'm not a student here." Benedict, by the way, is less than a mile from where I grew up. You know, people don't appreciate things close to them. You can't really appreciate it. When I worked in Philly, people never went to the Liberty Bell. It just wasn't something because it was so close. You can't appreciate it. People who live here, the people say Myrtle Beach is the #1 beach in the country. They're like, Myrtle Beach? Because it's local. You can't appreciate it. So I said to myself all my life, I'm never going to Benedict. I'm never going to USC. I didn't have anything against them, but it was local, so I couldn't appreciate it. So Ms. Thompson says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm with Warren." She says, "Well, I think you should be at Benedict." Remember what I just told you? I'm never going to Benedict. I said, I'm at North Greenville. I had a great first year. It's going well. I don't want to mess up the formula. So she says, here's the deal. If you transfer to Benedict, we just had this new program called Operation Male Lift. If you come into the program and you make no C's for 4 years, free. I'm not the smartest cat, but I understand the word free. So you got to remember this. Just 12 months prior, I finished high school with what? 1.3. This is how God works. So I'm debating it because I still have this internal system. I'm not going to Benedict. And because of Ms. Thompson knowing my family, she says, never mind. I will call who? Your mother. She calls my mom. My mom says, this is a no-brainer. You're coming home. Which I actually enjoyed a year away from Columbia, just to grow and just try new stuff. I enrolled at Benedict, 4 years go by. Every assignment that I had to write, it was something on fatherhood. Are you following this? Something on fatherhood. This before Google, before there was a father initiative, something related to fathers. So all of my 4 years, whenever they said, this is like a free writing day, you guys write a paragraph or a paper about whatever. I went to USC's library. I went to Benedict's library, Assembly Street. This is microfiche. Microfiche? Y'all know microfiche? Okay. Google it. Okay. Pulling articles literally with the magnifying glass that are maintained on these little, almost like strips of paper. But I researched everything I could about my story. And what I found was that every father has a story. I didn't even think about my father's story. I was so busy in my feelings about him leaving our family. But I began to understand that every father has a story. And so fast forward 4 years, I finished Benedict cum laude. I graduate. Here's where my career shifted. I wrote a senior paper called The Difference Between Successful and Non-Successful At-Risk Students. And the conclusion was that there was a positive male figure that was in his life. His father, an uncle, coach, a pastor, a deacon, or something like that. And it's concluded with the more that you have them around you, the better your chance of succeeding. So this is 1997. The paper that I wrote, there's a foundation in my same neighborhood, $85 million operation. The CEO of the foundation was about to start a statewide fatherhood initiative in South Carolina. Somehow, some way, my senior paper got into his hands. He asked to meet with me. I'm like, where are you? He says, I'm on Laurel Street, which is blocks away from where I grew up. I'd like to meet with you. So I go and meet with him. I applied to graduate school at the request of who? My fiance, now wife. I'm no fool, okay? Coming to here for the advanced standing program, 1 year. In and out, I'm gonna make that $25,000 quickly, right? Get to over here and they offer me the interview for the dual program, which I just finished 4 years. I wasn't a fan of school. I'm going from 1 year or 11 months to now 3 years of school. But here's the catch. If you complete this program, we're gonna guarantee you a job at DHEC. Y'all know DHEC? Mm-hmm. We're also gonna pay you 30 grand to come to school here. $500 a month. As a new husband at this time, I don't know the value of $500 a day, but that was, my rent was $400. I'm up. I come over here, I interview, and Tom Keith is his name. You should Google him. He's a great resource. Tom says to me, I'd like to take you from that program and I will underwrite that cost for you as well. Because I need you to lead this fatherhood initiative. I'm not a dad at the time, but my story is not private, it's public, because I always talked about it, always shared it. I finished 3 years from here, top of the class, academic honors. You cannot forget my story, guys. 5 years earlier, I was an average student. I graduate, and Tom makes me the director of the statewide fatherhood program. So here's a couple lessons that I want to share. Whatever is most painful to you is your pathway to your promise. The years that my parents separated were painful years for me. I can remember days while in college of crying as Father's Day neared. My father's birthday is January 1st. I'm not a fan of partying on New Year's Eve. We were always in church. Yeah. But New Year's Eve triggered things for me. Thanksgiving triggered things for me. And I suppressed those things. And then my wife encouraged me. She said, I think, she's amazing. I think you're gonna have to deal with this head on. A lot of us have our own crosses to bear, and we have hidden them. But I will tell you, do not hide them. Use them as a stepping stone to your promise. Don't think about money. Think about impact. Make sense? I worked for Tom for 3 years. In 2003, President George Bush was the President of the United States. He was coming to South Carolina. Mark Sanford, he's been in the news lately. Mark Sanford was running for governor at the time, and Mark Sanford was going to host President Bush in Charleston, South Carolina. And President Bush was about to start a federal fatherhood initiative. And on his way in, his people asked, we need to speak to the top fatherhood person in South Carolina. So I get a phone call from DSS. Y'all know DSS. They say, Patrick, you're the top guy in the state. We have a special guest. They didn't tell me who it was. A special guest coming in, and we want you to sit with this person. I'm like, well, who is it? Well, they said, well, first we need to get your social security number. Excuse me? Excuse me? So they went further and said, it's a political figure. We can't tell you who it is because it's security reasons. So I give my number, and this kind of excited curiosity, I'm like, oh, well. They checked my elementary, my middle school, my high school, my college years to see if I was a good guy, basically. And also, was I a threat to the president? Long story short, I cleared that. I get to Charleston. The meeting was on a Friday. Thursday night, we get in, and there's a choreographed U-shaped table with names on the table. At the top of the table, it just said, President, It didn't say of the United States, it just said president. So I'm thinking Boeing, you know, I'm thinking IBM. Next to it says Patrick Patterson. I finished high school in 1992. I finished undergrad in 97. I finished USC in 2000. This is 2003. It says President Patrick Patterson. And so everybody had to kind of give a spiel about why you're here. And I'm like, they asked me to talk about fatherhood. So that was all I said. The next day, as I'm driving up to the school, there's 3,000 people at the school. It's in the gym. I'm in like this office, and they escort me with all the security with guns to this room, and we're at our table. And as I'm sitting there, the President of the United States walks into the room. And he used to sit next to me. So everybody says a little bit about what they do, and then he asked me the question of all questions. He said, I heard you're the fatherhood expert in South Carolina. Why is this so important? There's some things you have to rehearse. I didn't have to rehearse that because I have my own story. So here's the second point I want you to catch. You have to tell your story. You have to embrace your story. There are parts of it that I was not proud of, but there are parts of it that have made me who I am today. So I don't know your journey. 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 But you have to tell your story. So in the 20 minutes that I had, uninterrupted, he just asked me, like, why is this important? And I told him my story. At the end of the conversation, he said to me, I need you in Washington. Uncle Calvin lived this. My whole family, I couldn't tell anything. And how many siblings?
16.
16. That's a lot of babies. I couldn't tell any of them. My family's close. So I get back, and before I know it, there's a picture, this before social media, picture of me and President Bush that is circling the globe. And it's a picture of the two of us laughing. So it looked like we went to high school together or something. So people automatically assumed that I had this clout or influence. But it was a moment of joy because there was no fear. I was able to share my story. So I get to Washington, and for 3.5 years, I'm traveling. You gotta remember this. The picture, when I got to Washington, people saw the picture. So I had to apply for my job, by the way. It wasn't given to me. I had to go through interviews. But people saw the picture, so they assumed that I was like an appointee. So most days when he traveled, they would say, Patrick, you guys are going to New York this week. And my mother, God bless her, I was fearful of, like, they got me mixed up. I'm not an appointee. She said, don't say a word. God's grace and mercy. Y'all not following this. I traveled next to the president for 3.5 years. He leaves office. He's 43, and then 44 comes in. Y'all know 44? Who's 44? Obama. At the end of President Bush's term, typically people leave or they do something else. I get this phone call. We understand you're the guy who understands fatherhood for the country. Would you do this for the next administration? The entire time, I'm still working off of my purpose. My purpose didn't come from some sunny day. It came from a place of pain. Most of us who live these purpose-filled lives do them because there's not something on the outside that drives you. It's something on the inside. Most of my fitness fanatic friends were once overweight. So they can tell the journey from a special place of why it's important to be healthy. Most of the best people who I've known who work in substance abuse arenas, they were once what? Addicts. They know it. So at this point in your careers, do an introspect of your life. Find that place of purpose and go and be free. After the years of Obama, I started my own business. Global Partners for Fathers and Families. And one of the things that I want to do was impact the world. I didn't want any kid to experience what I experienced as a kid. And I wasn't working with kids directly, I wanted to talk to the fathers. I wanted to say to them, you're important. Your kids need you. Tell your kids you love them. And so for the last 22 years, I have singularly focused on one audience. I've been to now 45 states and 7 countries. And I grew up 2 miles from here. I still finished with a 1.3 GPA. I still have that diploma. I'm not sure why they printed it, but they did, because the things that motivate me are those fears of going back to those places. So I have 5 things I want to leave you guys with before I close out. One is, and I shared one, tell and embrace your story. If your life was not perfect, don't magically create a perfect life for you. Clients know when you're lying. If you haven't seen it, work in this field long enough. They know when you're not telling the truth. Tell and embrace your story. The second thing, watch what you post on social media. In a politically crazed environment, because we're passionate people, we post what we passionately believe in. Candidates, issues, watch what you post. When I hire people now, when I work for both Bush and Obama, particularly under the Obama years, they check your Facebook page. Great resume. Credentials out the wazoo. But they want to see who you are. So I'm not saying delete your account tonight. But moving forward, watch what you post. I have, again, rules that guide what I post. It's either positive, promotional, or I'm praising somebody. I have thoughts about everything that you have thoughts about. You don't necessarily have to go on your page. I've fired people because of what they posted. Great people, by the way. But there are values in every organization that you're going to work in. In today's society, for you guys, watch what you post. Does that make sense? Yeah. Third thing, the people who've helped you, tell them thank you. Take them with you as best you can. But you got to tell them thank you. My uncle is the one that taught me how to tie. I don't have one on today, but taught me how to tie a tie. And I remind him of that because it changed my life. My mother disciplined my siblings and I. I'm going to use the word discipline here because we're recording. Okay? Aunt Ella, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
I'm so grateful that she did. Thank those people. Even if it's somebody who you haven't seen in 30 years, 20 years, 10 years. It's a high school teacher, it's a coach, it's a deacon, it's somebody in your fraternity or sorority, it's a person you met that said one thing to you. Tell them thank you. Because you needed them then, they may need you now. Does that make sense? The fourth thing, know your value. People assume that because you get this degree, that you are destined to a life of poverty. Social workers don't have to be broke. Let me release you guys. Social workers don't have to be broke. My first job that I got out of college, I was making 13 grand a year with the bonus from USC. It was a great bonus. My first job, my wife and I discussed, and she said to me, you should at least make $30,000. So I went into the interview. Tom Keith, great man, great mentor, great friend of mine. I went into his office. I didn't even look at the pay structure. I sat down with him, I said, listen, I need to at least make $30,000. He said, I'll give you 34. I walked out, chest was on swole. I get home to my wife, said, come in here. I got something to share with you. I'm making $34,000 a year. Say again?
She probably asked, why you asking 35?
You know my wife? Okay.
Because I'm the same way.
But here's the deal. The job was paying $60,000. I didn't know my value. I thought I needed him or the job, but to make this program work like it's supposed to work, guess what? Say it. They needed me. I don't have to make mistakes but once in my life. I've never made that mistake again. So before you apply for jobs, I will tell you, do your homework. Check the website. These folks at the
It's so
university,
important.
they know these industries. Ask them. Talk with them. Find out what they understand about those fields, or ask them to ask on your behalf. But do not go into your interviews unprepared. Do your homework.
And your starting salary is so important.
It's very important because it typically turns out to impact what you make at the end. So, it's 2019 now. Since 2007, I've made 6 figures. It's okay to do good and well at the same time. Good for them, well for you. Most of us have bleeding hearts. And so we're like, no. Just give me a piece of pizza and I'm good. But I have a family. When I leave USC today, my kids don't want to hear me talk about the pizza that y'all served. They want to know when next week's event at the school, when they have to put $5 in the hat, can they get the $5? So it's okay to do good and well at the same time. Do not diminish your value. Do not make social work a career of poverty. You can make money. It's not everything, but if you're starting with your purpose, it will take care of itself. So far, so good? The last thing I'll tell you, stay connected. Stay connected. Today you have an advantage. What's the advantage?
Social media.
Social media. Stay connected. I went from the administrations to now as a consultant with the NFL. I wanted to play in the NFL so bad. I wanted to sign a contract with the NFL as a high schooler. And then my beautiful wife said to me, "You're 5'6". You need people in your life like this, right? I'm like, but I can do it. You're 5'6". The chances are not that great. So work on some other stuff. 2009, I got a phone call from the NFL. They saw the work I was doing around fathers. And they said, we have dads who are players who are dads. Would you come in and teach parenting to the players? I signed a contract, and I have pictures of it, of me signing a contract, like I was a player. Because my goal, Dr. Pittner, was to sign a contract with the NFL. There's more than one way to skin a cat. Y'all ever heard that saying before?
Oh, yeah.
So everything is not a direct route. So open yourself up to that, but stay connected. Make your best effort to stay connected to the university. I was fortunate enough in 2000, it's my last point I made, 2015 or 16, to start a scholarship at this college in honor of both my parents. It's called the Patterson Scholarship. And my family is who you see today. The ups, the downs, the issues, the love, the purpose is tied to my family. So stay connected. Super important. If I had to just stop and just ask, what do you want to do? I would just answer by saying, make sure it's tied to what you believe. I believe that men are great. I believe that families need men. I believe that children need both parents. If you figure out that question, your life is going to be amazing. I have not had, and this is a blessing, a bad day in 22 years. With work, I've had bad days, but with work, I have not you know how you wake up and say, God, do not want to go in here today. When I hear people say that, I roll with the conversation, but I've never had that experience. Because my fire is still as high as it was from the time that I started doing this. So think about that. I know some people ask me, what about your dad? What about your dad, Patrick? My father passed in 2015. And if you go down this hallway, I can't remember which hallway I came in on, but there's a picture of us at the unveiling of our scholarship. In my dad's last days, my dad, after using for several years, he got really sick. My dad was a good-looking man. He was a muscular man. He was just a good man. But in his last days, he went from probably 190 to 90 pounds. And he was in hospice. I thought hospice was, you get better, you go home. Y'all know hospice? What does hospice mean?
You have 6 months to live.
It's the last stop. So I was living up north, coming home to see my dad every now and then, and I end with this. My brother called me, and he said, for 3 days, my dad has not eaten, drank, or had his eyes open. But the doctors, if you ever heard this before, tell me, because I've never heard this before. The doctor said, Daddy is ready to die, but he's waiting on somebody before he dies. Y'all heard this before? Mm-hmm. So I'm the only person who doesn't live here. So my brother says to me, no pressure, but when you can, come home. I was living in Delaware at the time. We were in Baltimore on vacation. We drive from Baltimore, if you know geography, north to Delaware. And the whole time I'm driving, I'm saying to my wife, I'm good. You know what somebody says typically, I'm good? Guess what? They're not good. So I'm driving up. My wife, God bless her. My wife, as I'm talking and trying to I'm just talking. She's booking a flight for me. So I get to Delaware and I'm thinking like, oh, I gotta book a flight. She says, I've already booked your flight. If you know geography, there's no airport in Delaware, so I gotta drive back to Baltimore. Long story short, it took me 10 hours to get home. The whole time I'm worrying about time. And the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me happened in this day. I get home. My brothers pick me up from the Charlotte airport. We're driving. We're all talking because we're good. We get to Columbia, and the place that my dad was last is in the same neighborhood that I grew up in. We drive past it. We're all good though. My brothers had already seen my dad, so we circle back, we get in, and I walk upstairs, and my dad is in this bed, and he is 90 pounds. His neck muscles are visible. I mean, you see the bone structure. And my dad had his eyes closed for 3 days. And when I walk in, I call him Dad. I never said Daddy or Father. I walk in, my mom made sure everybody left. And I said to my dad, I said, Dad. And in 3 days, he hadn't opened his eyes, he opened his eyes. I said, I love you. My dad, a tear fell, one tear. I grabbed his hand. I was in there for 5 minutes. And after that brief exchange, my dad passed. When I think about my journey, he was really waiting on me. He was really waiting on me. When I think about my life, it's been purpose-filled the whole time. From the time I was a 10th grader and my parents separated, it was birthing my purpose. So although a lot of us will see incidents in our past or life today or future as bad things, we have to look at what it's doing to birth your purpose. I'm grateful. My father is still my hero. He's the reason why I've met presidents. He's the reason why I've been to 7 countries. He's the reason why I tell my story with a smile. my father is still my hero. So as you think about your career, don't make it isolated to DSS. Start from the inside. I close with that. Thank you. Questions? Comments?
You got a card?
I don't think I have any cards on me. But I'll get my information out right now. If you want to write it down, you can. It's no secret. I'll give you my social stuff first, because I know y'all do that first. On Instagram is Patrick Pat 803, 1T 803. On Twitter, same thing. And on Facebook, it's Patrick Patterson. My email address is globalpartners with an S on it, 202@gmail.com. Excuse me. And my website is globalpartnersff, as in fathers and families.com. Easy. My wife answers that email. My wife had a very good job corporately 4 years ago. She left that, and now she supports everything that I do entirely. So when people email me, they typically get her, and she is still the one. I always say to her, if she ever leaves me, I'm going with her. She's that good to me. But very important to stay connected. I love to email you guys if there are jobs you guys are thinking about. The things I said are all personal in terms of do your homework, but if I can support you in any way as you're leaving South Carolina, you leave the university, I'd love to be helpful to you guys. There we go.
Will there be a raffle?
Oh, yes! The matters at hand. Where'd she put the other cards? Where'd she put the cards? The other halves. Young lady left one. Did she leave? Oh my gosh. Did she keep one?
No, I think she gave out both sides. I don't.
Do you have two of the same?
Well, the person who was sitting next to me and I have the same number, yeah.
I wasn't clear. Let's do this quickly. Can we do it quickly?
Yeah.
Who can help? Thank you.
She can.
Thank you. Oh, while she's doing that, this is a word I would tell you guys to learn. Signing bonus. Have you ever heard that word before?
Yeah.
I've tied it to sports all my life. The first time I ever used it was when I was recruited. I have a mentor, still a friend of mine, 20 years, Tom Keith. He said, I'm happy that you're leaving, but you got to get what you're worth. When I left the foundation, I was making $50,000, 2003. He said, when you apply for the job with the federal government, you should ask for a signing bonus. I said, I actually want the job, Tom. Like, I don't want to mess this up. He said, ask for a signing bonus. I was like, I do not want to mess this up. But people who are more experienced than you, listen to them. So as they're interviewing me, I said, oh, are there any questions for you, Patrick? I went through all the normal questions, you know, what are your holidays, all those fake questions. I said, I would like to talk about signing bonus. And I did it kind of like this. Like, they said, well, what's your question? And I'm thinking, you know, the interview's over. It's like, so what's your question? I said, well, I'd like to ask for one. They said, well, what's your number? I was like, and Tom told me, he said between 5,000 and 10,000. I've never gotten a check that was more than $1,000 at the time. Not like work related. So I said, $5,000. Like, I kind of did like that. They said, sure. I said, is that, you taking it out of my salary? Is this plus my salary? I said, no. Before you start, we'll send you a signing bonus. And I left and it changed my life. because the more I've grown, the more I've understood the value of who I am. And for you guys, you're in a whole other world now. Most of my friends, social workers, are doing, money is not everything, so I gotta just, I don't want you to hear me saying that too much. But they're doing very well because we push each other on your value. If you've grown an organization and the way they are thought of in the community, you're valuable. But you gotta get it going in. You can't mid-year say, oh, they love me here. What's up with the increase?
Or 5 years down the line.
No, it just doesn't work like that. So you gotta make your best effort to understand your value now, so that when you negotiate, that you negotiate right. The second thing I tell you about negotiation is it's not always money. The times I work for the government, I would say, you know, pause. Can I get 4 weeks versus 3 weeks of vacation? My kids are being born, can I get 6 weeks off? Wasn't money tied per se, but it was another thing that was a valuable asset that was not money. So when you negotiate, don't always focus on the money. Think about a car. Some of you will have jobs where you live in North Carolina and have to drive to South Carolina. Don't kill your car. I'd like to get an allowance for a rental car or a company car. All right, let's do a raffle. Uncle Calvin, you mind? No. Give Uncle Calvin a hand. I'm gonna read off the actual items, so don't feel like I'm being preferential here. The first gift is, anybody use Uber Eats? $15 for Uber Eats. Go for it, Uncle Calvin.
Okay, round and round we go. Just teasing. 165-3614. 165-3614.
Hey! The second item, if you don't want it, I will claim it, is a gift card to Starbucks, $15.
Ron would love that.
Dr. Perry, is this yours already? Going once?
165-3612. 165-3612.
Hey! Wait a minute here. That's a yeah. That's like the southern part of the United States over there. All right, the last raffle item is a gift card for $25.
Okay.
Visa gift card.
165-3622.
Hey! Oh, she's coming down for this one. Yeah. The price is right. Congratulations. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Very good. All right. Thanks so much, guys.